I have to say, mics make me weirded out. I don't like them. Um, just how humbled I am. And I'm going to get teary. Because I've been coming to this conference for many years. And when I hear, words like Lisa just said and meet people that I've seen here over the years and they say, what you said did this and what you said did that, it kind of blows me away because I'm just one person. I'm just a little girl from northern Alberta that had a fierce Métis mother that raised me to try to be a fierce woman. So thank you, Lisa, for those words. It made me feel very, very warm in my heart. I'm also a little bit, I got to sit at the table with Reg and Rose. And Reg and Rose knew my mother. Reg knows my brother. And to sit there, I just kind of feel like what I'm going to say is just not so non-sequential to what they just said to you all. The idea of the nest. I remember when I first started programming at the Musée Héritage in St. Albert, I was brought in as their Aboriginal programmer, and I wanted to put kids in a circle, and there was some stress about that. Oh my God, you're gonna put them in a circle? This is a French community, and I'm like, no, it's not, it's my Métis community. This is a very religious community, Catholic. Actually, no, it's not, it's a traditional Métis community. And so I put the kids in the circle because when you sit in the circle, like the elders say, you're equal. I never thought of the nest teachings and just how beautiful that was. We're all still little birds learning. It's one thing that I've been taught from the elders that I've been able to work with is that we're always learning. And so that's what I'm going to just say for now. So good morning, good afternoon, bumate, as we say in Michif, Tanse Kiawao, Sharon, Morin, Dishnakashin. Nia Michif Esquale, Nia Pixwan, along Michif Upsis. Just a little bit of language I have. But just me introducing myself in that language is an act of preservation of that language. So if you can learn to introduce yourself in your Michif language, your Cree language, the language of your land, you're making an act of establishing and reconnecting and maintaining a language that was built in Canada. Our languages come from the land. I want to thank all of the elders that have been here. We have some beautiful elders that are in this room. I've been fortunate enough to learn from many elders myself, including my mother, Thelma Shalafu. There's a school in Edmonton, the Thelma Shalafu School, which is pretty amazing. But she introduced me to women. And I was sitting here thinking, because they were talking about the grandmothers and that, and I was thinking as a young kid, when I was growing up, there was one woman that was the grandmother, and that was old Sophie Beauvais, Amanda Beauvais's mother. Every other of the women were aunties. And aunties play a huge role in our community. We do lots of things. We can even come in and help when the grandmothers and the grandfathers can't. And so I'm going to speak to you today as an auntie. Because aunties can be gentle, but aunties can also tell you what you need to do. And I hope to do that because I try to always lead with love and with a commitment in my heart that what I'm saying is truth. I wear this shirt today, Tapway. My Crow sister friend from Fort McMurray, Lisa Burke, she runs the Fort McMurray Trading Post. Look her up on Facebook. She brought this shirt to me at our last policy forum that we did for women of the Métis Nation. And she says, I bring this to you because she says, you and me speak truth all the time. And I thought it was fitting today as we learn about truthing and what that can be, the uncomfortable and the comfortable parts of it. So we give you our greatest resources. We bring you our elders. You put those elders, and I'm going to use the term toolkit. I learned this from this great teacher, Pierre Rousseau, who was just a really fantastic mentor of mine. And so you can put the elders and those teachings in your toolkit. In turn, We send you our greatest resources, our children. You spend many hours with our littles. You teach, you mentor, share, and hopefully learn from our children. Something that Dr. Dwayne Donald said was, let our children lead. And it's words that I heard spoken in many forms throughout this conference, throughout the last day and a half. Wakotowin, wakotowin, wakotowin. Relationships with land, relationships with, and when I say land, I mean all of the inhabitants, not just us as people, but the animals, the plants, the waterways, and even the rocks. I've been taught that rocks are our oldest beings. They're so old that they have no eyes and they have no mouth, but they have ears and they are listening to us. Monday morning, my youngest Nosum was at my house on Monday morning before I came over here. And I have a shelf in my living room and I have rocks set up there. And he's looking at the rocks and he calls me Cookum, which I just cherish. And he says, Cookum, what are these rocks for? He's very intelligent, very well-spoken 4-year-old. And I said, well, those are the rocks that Cookum has in her. You know, I pray with those rocks. I said, and they're my friends. And I gave him that teaching of those rocks. And he started to pick up the rocks and he was looking at them and turning them around. There's an ear. And he'd say, I love you. And he put it down and he did it with about 4 rocks. And I just thought, that's the first teaching that I'm giving that child, is to love the earth. This rock that I have in my hand, I went into my room last night after we finished and we went down and we watched the game. Yay, Oilers, woohoo. Hey, I'm an Oilers fan. Anyway, I was putting things away and kind of organizing myself for the morning, and this rock was on my bed. I don't know where this rock came from. I did bring a rock with me because I usually carry a rock with me all the time. And there's this rock on my bed and I thought, this rock needs to travel with me today. So I bring this rock. If you pay attention and you open your minds and your hearts and your classrooms, you can actively participate in the act of Wakotowin. That is part of what is being offered to you as educators. You're being asked, and we're asking you to put that into action, building those relationships, maintaining those relationships. It was so beautiful to hear Dr. Denny this morning talk about going and having lunch with her high school teacher. That's Wakotowin. That's what that is, that continuation. Something else that I picked up on was from mind to heart and from heart to hand. And that's another step into colonizing your space. Just learning to lead with your heart, which I think most teachers do instinctively. But what is being asked here is that you do it consciously. That when you're making your plans for the year, that you put these teachings that are at the forefront of your thinking when you're making those plans, and that you put that into action. I'm going to echo my good friend Charlene Barehead. She said in last year's CASS statement, relationship, relationship, relationship. I think that is something that we've all witnessed here, and we've heard it over and over. It's the key to learning. So last year, I went to Egypt. I was part of the first Métis delegation to go to the UN COP on climate. It was the first Métis delegation to ever go, and I was really proud to be part of that. It was the first time at COP that the Indigenous people had their own pavilion, and it was the first time that the youth were not in a separate space. And I'm going to say that probably 95% of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit delegation were folks under 30 years of age. And they're impatient with us. They want action. They're tired of listening to talk. Earlier on, I was at a I attended a MMIWG event in Ottawa. And we had a group there of young First Nations and Métis who came and sang. They've sang for the last 5 years at that event. And there's a young woman there who they call their young auntie. And she's actually a young girl from Fishing Lake Métis settlement here in Alberta. And she said, she spoke a few words, and then she said, we've been coming here for the last 5 years, and nothing has changed. They're impatient. They want action. They want things to change. Now, I'm not saying that things have not changed here. I've seen the change. But what I'm saying is that our kids are ready. Our kids are willing and able to walk this journey with you as educators. And I hope you are ready as educators, superintendents, trustees, and community members to walk that walk with them. Walk in right relations. Walk alongside them, not in front of them. Walk beside them. Walk behind them, put your hand on their back, and give them that support that they need. All children need that. Not just our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children, all children need that. I know that we've heard things that have made us, uncomfortable, but I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to hear any more from educators that they're scared or that they're uncomfortable or that they weren't taught it. You are giving all of these resources here. There's nothing to be scared of. This is our love to you. We're giving this to you, and we want you in turn to share that. Our teachings are so integral into the land and relationship. They're older than, they're older than all of us. They're older than many, many things. They've been on this land for centuries. And it's something that we can do instinctively if we just take the time to do it. Now, I wasn't able, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend all the sessions. There's only one of me, and I was running back and forth, and I did a 2-hour session in the morning. But what I did do is I was really impressed with. So there's so many opportunities to learn and the resources for your toolkits. Sessions on truth and reconciliation, journey of truth from head to heart, Treaties 6, 7, and 8, Education Alliance, honoring the voices of Indigenous teachers and school leaders, to name a few. Do you hear the themes that are in those titles? Can you pick them out? Great resources, again, created by First Nations, Métis, and Inuit educators. Again, to put that in your toolkit of yours. A resource built to give our kids heroes. Heroes from our communities that they might know. Heroes that might look like them. Heroes that have walked the walk as them or their family members. And that they understand the struggles and how they got there. Something that the presenter, Crystal Clark, said was, and I just loved it. She said, these resources are seeds. So what do you do with a seed as an educator? Obviously, you water them. You nurture them, you support them, and you help them grow. Every child needs a hero in their life. Coming together session where they presented on honoring their students. I just love that. Honoring is such a great word to give to a young person, that you honor them, who they are as a person, the place that they stand in. Sorry, I forgot, I lost my space. Oh, there we go. And they asked their kids, they went and asked the kids, they let their children lead. They asked them what they wanted. They listened, and they worked with the home ec teacher. They worked with the community. They worked with the beading ladies, as they were so lovingly called. And they created unique grad gifts, and they let their children lead. Land-based learning from Brian Johnson and Vance Quinn. I tell you, I just had a lot of laughs in that presentation, but it was so good. And I think that's something that our community is very good at, is laughter and bringing that fun into the programming and the teachings that we do. They are the perfect examples of working together to create outdoor space for their students. I want to say firstly that they're very lucky to be in the area that they're in, because some of us are in urban settings or we don't have that space. But that space that they've created will last forever. It will leave long-lasting memories that kids will never forget, and relationships that will last a lifetime, and a true appreciation of the land and all of its gifts. In conclusion, I'm just going to borrow something from Byron Johnson and the idea of knowing or know. So this is what I want you to know. I want you to know your students as individuals, not as just somebody in your class. They're all little humans. They all have a personality. And there's a beautiful elder in Edmonton by the name of Elsie. She always calls the kids the little elders because they're open and they know things. Know your students' families. Get to know, say hello, have them into your classroom, visit. Don't make it formal. Have tea. Know your resources. Make sure that you're using valid resources. Make sure that you're connecting with community members. Make sure you're always checking that they're relevant and they're on time and they've been updated, because there are old resources out there that kind of make me cringy sometimes. Know that mistakes are okay. It's one of the things that I was asked many, many times about inviting elders, and protocol and giving protocol. I thought the funniest question I got was like, what do you do when you bring an elder in? I shared this last night at our table. I was like, what do you mean, what do you do? What do you do when you bring your grandparents over to your house? How do you treat them? Do you give them tea? Do you give them a chair? Do you take their jackets? Do you visit with them? That's what you do when you bring in an elder to your class, or an auntie or an uncle. They're family. You treat them like family. The kids will automatically be drawn to that kind of way and not being so formal, and they'll be able to sit in and listen better. It's also okay that you don't know how to give protocol, because most elders will be gentle with you. When I give tobacco, the way I was taught, it's like my contract, and I'm asking them to do something specifically, and I'm thanking them for being here and giving me their presence and their time. If you don't do it right, it's okay. You'll learn, and elders and those in the community will teach you. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid. Know that not knowing is also okay. You don't have to know everything. We don't know everything. Know that you can always ask questions. There are many people out there that will help you. Know that we entrust you with our greatest resource, our children. I read a statement from my mother in 1978, and they were doing a child welfare a conference. And there's my mother in 1978 saying, you're taking our greatest resource, and we as community need to take that resource back and invest in that resource and nurture that resource. Those kids are our resource. Those kids are going to keep our languages, are going to keep our traditions, going to keep our culture, and keep Canada the great country that it is. Know that not all Indigenous children are raised in their culture. I'm a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, well, I dye my hair, whatever, but I got, I do, but I got blue eyes. I'm very fair-skinned. Not everybody in my family was like that. I had dark, my sister Arlene was very dark, olive-colored skin, green eyes, So don't always assume that every child knows everything, and that somebody that's blue-eyed in your classroom might be Métis, because we come in all shades, as my mother would say. Know that we are aware of our past traumas. It's hard sometimes when you sit in a group and people want you to share their trauma with you every time, Be considerate of that. Not everything is trauma-based and trauma-informed. We learned that today from Reg and his teaching of sitting with the elders and that gentle teaching of that nest. Not everything is trauma-informed with us. We have beautiful cultures. We have beautiful ceremonies. And that's something else that we can tie into. Know that it's okay to lead with love in your profession. You're all professionals. You got your degrees, and you earned that all. But don't forget that space of love in your heart for our kids and for the work that you do and that love for yourself. Be gentle on yourself. Don't put all that on you. Remember that you're only one, but there's many around you that can support you and love you and help you on your journey. And lastly, and know that we are all here to support you in your classrooms, because that's what we're set here to do. I take this role, and I do a different role now, but I take this role very seriously. When I went to school in northern Alberta, went to school in Slave Lake, grade 10, 1979. My sister had passed away. My mom had a mental breakdown. Things were really not good in the house. It was a hard time for us. And I started skipping school a lot and just, was kind of lost and used to go underneath the Black Bridge where the train was, and we'd just sit there and smoke cigarettes and talk stupid stuff and things like that. But it was an escape for me. So I was brought into the office by the two male teachers that were there, and I won't name them because I think they're still alive. I won't name them this time. I've named them before, but I won't this time. But I'm brought in by these two male instructors, and they sit me in their office and they say, Sharon, some kids are meant for school and some kids aren't. And we feel that you're not meant for school. I'll never forget that. And I don't care if I saw them on the street today and they said they didn't say that. I know they said that to me because I've heard it from other women that they said that to in that same school. Other women one was a trustee. So, words are powerful. And that's why I always say lead with love. Know your students. Know their families. Don't be afraid. No more, I'm scared. No more of that. We got to be brave. We got to stand forward, and we've got to give our kids the spaces that we need. CASS, this conference, I think, is one of the best places for you to get to know elders and be part of that circle with those elders. But know that our elders are aging. Our elders are very busy. They can't always be there. So look at the aunties. I was an auntie when I was 5 years old, when I first became an auntie with my oldest brother, who's actually friends with Reg Crowshoe. So I've been an auntie a long time. And use the aunties because the aunties are marvelous. They would learn from the Cookums. I want to thank Diane and everybody from CASS for having me here. And I'm just so humbled and so honored. And I just have so much faith in you as educators and so much hope for our children that they'll always know what the word that my mom always taught me was o tapimsawak. They know how to be their own bosses. They know how to lead themselves. And it's because of the support and the resources and the love that they got from the educators. So merci. Hi, hi.